And welcome back to the RD7 startup, part 2. And a spoiler alert, if you want to be surprised if it runs or not, just fast forward or look away for about 10 seconds. So it's okay, I'll wait. And here's some shots of my winter rye from a previous video. Okay, it runs, but you knew that. And thanks to everyone who watched part 1 of this project. And I'll wrap it up here in part 2. And show how I had to overcome, expectation bias, polluted thinking, whatever you want to call it, and educated myself on these older fuel systems.
All right, we got a good one.
Obviously, we got it running, so here's my journey. I felt I needed a hand leading the fuel system, so my neighbor friend John, and a potential new owner of this machine, came by to help. And of course we had troubles with the starting engine again. I'd cleaned out the carburetor last week, but the little fuel tank still had some junk in it and found its way back into the system. So we fought that a bit. Can't imagine it's out of gas. After some time spent cleaning the carburetor and supply line, we got the starting engine running good enough to make another attempt at the diesel. With the diesel turning over, here John is bleeding each injection pump individually. And we even cracked the lines at each injector as well. Still with no smoke out the stack, we took a step back to figure out what we were missing. So we finally got smart and figured out we needed to take a look at the fuel rack to see if it was moving. And it turned out it actually was stuck in position. I mean, the rack was fine, but the plungers for each injector were stuck in their bores, so they weren't moving. I think these three here were stuck. This one was still free. So we had to take this the rack off and sort of wiggle those injector plungers around until they were freed up. All right, so this is what we were dealing with. This is an injector pump off of some other machine, but it's very similar. I've got the injector body and the pump plunger that has to both rotate to deliver and meter how much fuel, either more or less. And then as it moves vertically, it pumps fuel up into the injector, into the combustion chamber. So on our machine, these were stuck in the injector body. It was just a matter of taking the rack away from that sector and just kind of giving it a wiggle and getting it to move once again. Then we threw everything back together and away we went. These plungers, you see, have a line on top of them, so it can only go together one way. So once we took the rack off and got these freed up, we were able to index the rack once again and get it back together. The other thing we had to look at, especially on these older machines, they have a stop run selector, and all that does is there's a little some very simple linkage that runs back to the back of the injection pump, and what that does is that controls a little finger behind the rack here, that in the stop position it pulls the rack aft beyond idle into a fuel shutoff sort of position. So this rack, because those plungers were stuck, the rack was either stuck in sort of a very low idle or maybe even in the off position. But with those plungers all freed up, that allowed the rack to fall forward. So as much as we moved this linkage for the start-stop, or the run-stop lever, it really had no influence on the rack itself. It would just go back and forth, since the rack was already in the stop position. Then on the throttle itself, think of the throttle as just a request. You're asking. All you're doing is you're applying a different force on the governor spring. It's sort of like your thermostat in your hallway in the house. You're asking for something, and the governor and the injection pump are going to give you something. So as much as we wanted to up here, we were kept asking for more fuel, but all we were doing is we were applying a spring force up to the governor, and the governor would say, okay, yeah, I'll give you more fuel, and it would send another spring force up to our injection pump. But of course our rack was stuck in either the low idle or the stop position, so the injection pump said, no, that's what I'm giving you. That's all there is to it. So as much as you requested something up here, we were not receiving what we wanted down here.
Yeah.
Oh, shut off works.
Easy enough.
A big thank you again to John for coming out, spending his time helping me get this machine running again after many years. John's got his own YouTube channel. It's called Catskat. So I'll put a link in the description below. You can check him out. He does nice work. All right, thanks, John. And let's get a walk around on this machine. I've got this excellent book here. It's put out by the Antique Caterpillar Machinery Owners Club. It's for track machines 25 to 1960. And if we come over to the RD7 page, it shows the RD7s were made from 1935 through 37, and then it looks like they rebranded it as a D7, so they dropped the R. But we have a 9G 5615, so that puts it in the 1939 year. It is a wide, so that's a 74-inch gauge, and you know, it looks even wider than that because these pads are 24-inch pads. So I did measure the gauge. It is a 74-inch tractor, but. And stop the presses. I just had to show you this Diesel 50. We're talking about tracks. This one has the 22-inch pads on it, but it has the same gauge. The 74-inch gauge is sort of a predecessor to the RD7. I might get this thing running next, but I just had to show you this thing. All right, let's get back out to the RD7. There's your data plate there. It's tough to see, but it says 9G 5615 WSP. Seat tank, good drawbar. It's all ready to hook up a disc and go farming with it. Good farm cat. It's got a 5-roller frame. Pins and bushings are decent. They're sort of at the end of their life, but there's still some life on there to do some recreational farming. And this side you got the oil filters. It's got a little bit of a drippy lift pump on it. Maybe that's something that might need to be addressed. The whole machine needs a good service. The radiator core is in great shape. We've topped it off with coolant. I don't see any weeps or drips, nothing going on with the core, so yeah, good radiator. It does have, of course, the RD7 head badge on it, which may or may not be factory. I'm not really sure because it's sort of the end of the RD7 line, like we said. And I can go around and look at some of these date codes, and I can come up with anywhere from 36. Here's a 1939 ED. I know that one. That's a 39. This looks like it has the actual date on it here, 8/6/37. It's unusual. Usually these are coded. Here's looks like an EO up here, UMA EO, date code. So how much of these parts are original? I don't really know. Don't know the history of the tractor, really. It does have a generator on it, so we're set up for electrics if we should so decide. Of course, the American Bosch magneto should really have the Eisman on it with the ability to retard and advance timing. Good Zenith carburetor. Single speed on the starting engine. Stop run selector, compression release, of course. All the normal controls. Decent toolbox. All the sheet metal on this thing is in very good shape. Good fenders, both sides, nice and straight. And if we get up on the operator's deck here, one thing we're missing is the air cleaner. It looks like the previous owner had something different installed up here. And it looks like in order to do so, looks like he got out Terry the Torch or somebody named Victor, as John would say, and torched away some material here, and it looks like they've cut off the brake adjustment on the pedal as well. So it must have had some larger air cleaner in here. The hood's real straight, nothing cosmic on that. Good visibility with this machine. The way the dash is designed, you can see both front tracks real well. Excellent visibility. Yeah, that hinge line down the middle to work on either side of the engine. And I would think if one wants to take the starting engine off, you don't even need to pull the hood. Just maybe unbolt one side of it, one half of it, fold it back. You have to pull the exhaust pipe, of course. Good seat cushion. And like I say, nice clean fuel tank. All in all, it's a good clean tractor. That's all I got for you. All right, thanks for watching.